So in this lesson, we will answer 3 written response questions for Just Like Home. Now, the first question we have here, how are Priya's feelings about recess at her old school and her new school different? Use 2 details to support our response. So now this question we would find from the beginning here. We know that at her old school, she spent recess climbing the monkey bars and sharing secrets with her friends. Now she sat in the corner of a field and watched the other kids play without her. We can make the assumption here that Priya had a better time at her old school than she does at her new one, because at this one, she doesn't have any friends. She's going to say that the only time she forgets that she has no friends at her new school is when she is doing art. So for our answer for this, we would want to make sure we're talking about Priya's feelings. So here we have Priya likes her old school better than her new school because she was happy at her old school, but unhappy at her new school. And for our evidence, we could say in paragraph 1, the text says that Priya used to hang out with her friends. This shows that she was happy at her old school because she had friends. Another detail we could have used was the one where she was playing with friends at recess and sharing secrets. You could say she used to share secrets with her friends, which showed she was enjoying herself. And she had people that she hung out with and had good relationships with. And if we're going to take another detail about why we know she's not liking her new school, then at her new school, she was alone by herself sitting in a field watching other students play. And I'd follow this up with, this shows Priya is not happy at her new school. We could have also said this shows Priya is sad at her new school, or even lonely, actually, because basically, if the opposite of happy is sad, you could still close your answer here. We could call this a short paragraph. Priya is sad. We could change this one too. This shows Priya is sad and lonely at her new school. And that would be for our first question. And now our second question. This one is a little trickier. So it's going to ask us, what do Lily and Jasper's points of view reveal about the drawing? All right, so if we go back to what Lily and Jasper said. Now, Lily and Jasper just have 2 quick lines here. It would have probably been an easier question if it was asking us about Enrique, because he saw something more significant, we could maybe say. It reminded him of the tiles at his grandma's house. And then even Farah, she said it looked like the mugs in her uncle's house in Iran, except on the rugs, the shapes are bigger. So we had these rugs, and then we had, Enrique said, he used to draw, he said, you know what this reminds me of? The floor of my grandmother's house. So if it's going to ask us about Lily and Jasper's, now I would want to restate my question here. I say, Lily and Jasper's points of view reveals that the drawing was expressive of 3 different cultures. Now, you don't have to say cultures here. We could word this differently. We know that it is leading us to the idea that they're different cultures, right? But we could say it reveals that the drawing was, we could say meaningful. We can change this here, meaningful to all the students who looked at it, right? So we're saying all the students saw something different. You could also say their points of view show the drawing could be, the drawing was interesting to all the students because they all ended up coming over and talking to Priya. They all wanted to share their ideas. So you could say it also, their points of view reveal that the drawing was something that everyone liked. everyone found an interest in it. You could say it was meaningful, it was interesting, it was something that all the students could talk about. It gave them something to share about. So this would be the detail where I'm just going to write Lily and Jasper saw images of outer space and coral reefs. You could make this longer. You could even quote them. Lily saw, and then we could use the quote there. Lily saw a universe. And then we could say Jasper saw a coral reef full of fish. And then when we add what Enrique, we would add the other students. So even though this one's asking about Lily and Jasper, we could still add what Enrique and Farah saw, because that is kind of leading us to our story's theme. So a theme or central idea, that would be a message that readers can take. So here we had put in conclusion, every student saw the drawing from a different cultural, or we could say, or personal perspective. And perspective is the same basically as point of view. So if you're going to see what is Lily and Jasper's perspective, perspective and point of view just means how someone else sees something. For example, if you watch like a movie with your family, maybe you really like the movie, but in your parents' point of view, the movie wasn't good. Or maybe you like a video game and your sibling or your friend, they don't like that video game. So you could say their point of view of the video game is it's boring or it's too hard. Same with like homework. Some people's point of view might be an assignment is easy. And then another person's point of view might be the assignment is difficult. So just like in real life, characters can also have points of view. And we would know, also you would say whose point of view is a story being told in. So in this story, the point of view is Priya's, because she's the one whose thoughts and feelings us as the reader is aware of. But even though it's Priya's point of view, the story, the author's telling her thoughts and feelings, we still get other characters' points of view, but only through their dialogue. So notice we don't get the thoughts of the other characters. Even when Farah's drawing, it's just what she's drawing. We don't have any of her thoughts here while drawing. And then our final question here, that one will be our theme question. It's going to say, how do Priya's actions in paragraph 5 develop the theme of the story? Now this question, when we look at our theme, well, first we would want to go to paragraph 5. Okay, so we're looking for how do our actions in paragraph 5 develop the theme. So we need to make sure we're using a detail from this paragraph, at least one. Here is where she takes out the chalk and starts to draw. So if we were going to ask ourselves, how did her drawing these Rangoli patterns develop the theme of the story? And also we know the title of the story is Just Like Home. And at the end of the story, Priya's saying to herself and smiling, it looks like home. So we know that she changed from beginning to end, because in the beginning, she was sitting by herself watching the other kids play. In the end, she's smiling and socializing with the other kids. They're all talking to her. They're all drawing with her. You could say they're hanging out. So if we're going to say her theme, I want to restate my question. The theme of Just Like Home shows how everyone has a different perspective, but still wants to belong and unite. And then our detail, in paragraph 5, Priya got some chalk to draw Rangoli patterns, which reminded her of her home culture in India and times with her friends and family. In paragraph 22, all the kids are covered in chalk dust drawing together. This shows that they were having fun times uniting over celebrating cultures. So this would be an example of a theme paragraph. You could also, so maybe you didn't remember what culture, because sometimes culture is a history word too. Culture just means things like art, food, language, holidays, religion that are important to people in different regions of the world. So we knew Priya was from India, we knew Enrique was from Mexico, and then Pharaoh was from Iran. So we can assume that by mentioning all these different cultures, that's what our author was trying to get us to think about. But if you couldn't remember the word culture, or you didn't know how to describe it or write about it, we could say it's a story about friendship. We could say Priya's actions in paragraph 5 help develop the theme of friendship because her art brings her new friends. And we could say, and then I would basically use the same detail in a way. I could say in paragraph 5, Priya gets some chalk and begins to draw Rangoli patterns that remind her of her home, which we could also say her friends were there too, right? So that is what basically is the catalyst. And a catalyst is something that someone could do that causes something to happen. Also, like in a chemistry class, a catalyst could be something you add to make something explode. So it's also a science word. So here I could say, we could say, while Priya is drawing, other kids come over and start to talk to her. And we could even say, Enrique tells her about his grandmother, and Farah talks about her uncle. We could say this is sharing experiences. We could say at the end of the story, Priya is smiling and she is no longer sad about missing her friends from her old school. She smiles and says, "It looks like home." And then I could say, which shows Priya is now happy at her new school because she has made friends. And you could say that is the theme here. Developing the theme of friendship. I would actually, in my last sentence, I might make this answer a little long because I might want to follow up. We could also say something how art brings people together. You could say the theme of friendship and art. And we could say this develops the theme of the story because Priya finds friendship through sharing her art. And then I just restated my theme here. And I say how our quote and her being happy at her new school, this is going to show the theme that when you share experiences with people or when you share things you're interested in, you could even say something about hobbies. When you, one way you could make friends is by sharing your hobbies and interests with other people. That could be another theme. So there's not just one answer for any of these questions, except this one. Well, the one about her being happy, or the one about her feelings, there's not just one answer, but you would definitely have to say something about how it was negative or not good for her at her new school, but at her old school, she had friends. So you could say either she was happy at her new school, or she was happy at her old school, and sad at her new school. You could find different ways to word that, but that would kind of have to, something along those lines would have to be for this answer. And you would back it up. And you would also know that this one's asking about the beginning. So sometimes you might get confused because this would be talking about that first paragraph. And you might say, if you skip towards the end, as long as you use evidence, if you said Priya was happy at her old school because she had friends, she is happy at her new school after making friends. You would have to say something along the lines of, at first, she wasn't happy. But that is how you could answer the 3 written response questions for Just Like Home.